I don't think there would be a Nicki Minaj or an Iggy Azalea if it wasn't for Kid Sister and for Amanda Blank. The internet democratized everything and made it so we could all get access to this music. They had a thing called the Vomitron 2000. Any DJ, I guarantee any fucking DJ from this era, if you brought up Science Socks, they would be like, yep, their eyes would light up. And South by was at that time really important because that was the first time that all of us came together. I feel genuinely that that time in music shaped everything that we're experiencing now.
Hey there, it's me, Roxy Cottontail. You might know me as a DJ, artist, designer, and New York City party promoter, or from my bunny logo. I'm putting all that on the table and writing about the years that transformed music and the New York City scene. I've interviewed 250 friends and colleagues I admire. I ask all and reveal all. Please join me in the tales to rediscover the 90s and the Y2K magical landscape of music, art, technology, and streetwear. This is Roxy's Tales.
My name is YehMe2, aka formerly of Flosstradamus.
I know you as Josh.
I'm Josh Young,
J2K,
Young Josh, right? J2K, the digital dad. I have many monikers at this point.
My guest this week on Roxy's Tales is Josh Young, aka YehMe2, formerly known as J2K and co-founder of Flosstradamus of Chicago. Josh's contribution to elevating music and community was the foundation for Midwest America in the Y2K era, which grew globally. Now a yogi, Josh continues to combine community and a different kind of club. We discuss the early days of Flosstradamus in Chicago, mashup life, juke, trap, and the evolution of EDM, and so much more. Without further ado, Josh Young.
And you started DJing when?
I started DJing when I was 16, just like in my bedroom. Literally got like a bootleg copy of the DMC battle, and it was the year that A-Track won when he was like a shorty. And so that was like my first like exposure to like, I was like, oh, this is cool. So I was just like wanted to scratch. So I just would like take my parents' records and scratch it on their record player. And then started DJing in my room at 16 and started DJing like clubs and actually like playing out when I was 18. If it wasn't for my parents like having cool music around and like being cool, and like my sister especially, oh my god, my sister put me on to like all the cool shit. If I didn't have like people playing me cool music, then like I wouldn't have ever gotten to this.
And then where was your first gig at 18?
My first gig was at a place called Fireside Bowl in Chicago, which is like a bowling alley that also does punk shows. They would have like, it was like a teeny tiny little stage. If you could imagine, the like a bowling alley with all the lanes, and then sort of behind that where they have like the bowling balls and like you could rent the shoes, they had a stage that was maybe the size of like a king size mattress that they would like squeeze a band on and whatever. So I actually played in between bands for a show with a group called Life During Wartime. It was 3 DJs that I was like a part of their collective. So so it was cool. And it was my first time ever playing out. It was amazing. And I have to shout out Turntable Lab because that's where I got all my vinyl. I didn't even like know how to like dig yet. I just like was buying vinyl online and having it shipped to my house. So Turntable Lab made such a huge impact on my career, but just on that whole moment, with like Holotronics and with everything that was like coming out of Philly and New York. They really put that on the front page for kids like me who were like not in that area. I was witnessing it from afar and thinking how cool it was.
Yeah, I know. Were you like buying mixtapes too? Because
like Low B or Diplo, I would hear them play like The Percolator, which is like a Chicago like house record. It's something that I hadn't heard outside of the context of like a barbecue in like one of my like uncle's houses. So hearing like other DJs play it from outside of Chicago, and then also seeing like crowds of white kids, like all these like rock kids and stuff that would be like at like a Matt and Kim show, like get fucking turned to it. I was like, whoa, this is so different. That was such a huge part of it, I think, was like the context. Like for Flosstradamus, me and Curt would like play in between bands at these like punk shows, and it would be like hardcore like dance punk, and then it would cut to us and we'd be playing like fucking Lil Jon and the East Side Boys mixed with like Darude Sandstorm, like just like the regular version, this like stadium trance and like crunk music, and it just fucking worked perfectly with those crowds. Those kids would just go fucking crazy.
Where else were you playing? Where were you going in Chicago?
Yeah, so there was another so like just a quick recap. I got introduced to these guys live during wartime. It was a guy and a girl, DJ Bald Eagle and DJ Mother Hubbard, Chris Baroner and Chess Hubbard. And I worked at a venue called the Metro, which is like a legendary Chicago venue. There's a club called Smart Bar that's in the basement of it, and that's like one of the first like house venues in Chicago, like where house music really like debuted. And so I started interning there when I was a kid and met them, and they were like, okay, cool, you're a little DJ, like you can come play first of three at our nights. So I played that bowling alley, and then they had a residency at this place called the Hideout. And yeah, so I would go on and like warm up the crowd at the Hideout. But like they were definitely like, they're like legit DJs now, but like then that was a time where like they weren't really blending. They were literally just like playing a rock record and then playing like a disco record, and then they were going all over this place, but they weren't even mixing the records together. And I had come up in this like turntablist, like super DJ mentality where just beat matching two records was like the easiest thing in the world. So I feel like that was like what was happening too with like A-Track and with Diplo and stuff, where who they had the skills to like scratch and do this other stuff, and it was like, oh well, we can just make mashups and like rock parties. That's easier. So I was like doing the most. I would be playing like a headliner set at like 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever as people were coming in. So yeah, so that got me like noticed, and like a lot of people would come and like come early for my set and stuff, which was really rad. And that's how I met Curt, and like Flosstradamus went from there. He literally saw me DJ out, and then I went to his night and saw him DJ and was like, we're doing the same shit. And we just like, the rest was history. We just like linked up after that. And we were so inspired by what was happening in New York and Philly that we were like, there's nothing like that here in Chicago. Like there were house party versions of it, like loft parties, like where like this dude Johnny Love was doing like these like art shows and like very similar to like what Todd P was doing, like these like sort of like ratchet house parties / like shows, and then we would DJ that. But we were like, yo, we need to get a residency somewhere and actually like bring this to a club. So we made like a mixtape and we like pitched it to all these clubs, like nightclubs, and they were like, nah, because this was a time in Chicago where like very specific genre based nights, like tech house, like this is a tech house night, this is a old school house night, this is a trance night. And we were playing fucking everything in the kitchen sink, right? And so we got shut down a whole bunch, and finally Curt's girlfriend at the time was working at this like dive bar called Town Hall Pub.
That's in Boys
And
Town, right?
in Boys Town, yeah. And she was like, you guys can have a one Wednesday a month. And that was it, man. We started doing this party for our friends and like brought it to a legit venue, and the capacity was 75 people. So like you can imagine what the energy was like in there. We would have like 250 people in there, and then like another 200 on the street, like waiting to get in. It was just like the most hype shit in the city. It was crazy.
I never made it to Town Hall Pub.
I know, it's crazy. A lot of like the people from that time like definitely popped through. We had Justice pop through, Wes pop through,
Yeah,
Alon pop through, Steve Aoki.
did these people like join you as guests?
A-Track played one. Wes, I think, like just like got up on the decks and like played like a couple songs. But for the most part, it was just us, and then like Chicago artists, like the cool kids became a thing at this party, like Hollywood Holton and Mano, like $1 Million Mano, they played at this party and stuff like that. So it was like a thing for like Chicago artists. Kid Sister used to host the party. That was like how she like even got on the mic at all, was she was like the host. And then she started rapping and like became, an artist in and of her own right, but like she wasn't even doing that stuff when the party started. Like when the party started, she was just like, oh, cool, this is fun. And then like she started rapping, and then next thing you know, she's like doing her own thing.
Amazing. Where does the name Flosstradamus come from?
There's a friend of ours, Josh Davis, just gave us the name. He was like, we were thinking of different names, and he was like Flosstradamus, and we were like, cool, that's it. Like it was so at that time in our life, we were like 20, 21. So like we didn't put thought into anything. We were not prepared for any of the fame that came our way or anything. We were just kind of like, yeah, cool. Flosstradamus. What was that again? Flosstradamus? Yeah, okay, that's what we'll call ourselves. Like, who cares? Like it was J2K and Autobot for a second, but I was like, yo, we need to like brand it a little bit,
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that was it. Then the night was called Get Out the Hood, because everyone lived in different places. No one lives in Boys Town. Boys Town is like a neighborhood, but like that was like the most expensive rent like possible. You know, it would be like living in the LES right now. Like it's like no one could afford to live there, but there was this little shitty dive bar that happened to be there amidst all of these like mega gay clubs, and then this like little hole in the wall that was there. And so it was like, let's tell everyone, like, you got to get out the hood, you got to get out of your comfort zone and like come see us. And people did, which was really rad.
And was the mixtape released elsewhere? You just were using it to solicit gigs?
We ended up putting it on MySpace. It was called the three-peat mix. And we ended up putting it on MySpace, and it like definitely caught some attention there. And also Biz3, the publicity firm, like we just like kind of became homies with Catherine Frazier from there. So she took us on as like a pet project and just like got us some like national exposure. But our first gig that we played outside of Chicago was this random weird like bougie club in Memphis, and like it was not it. Like it was like no one knew us, no one knew what it was. We were like, oh shit, like this is weird. And then the next like week, my gay husband and Paul Devereaux brought us to Vancouver, and we were like, oh, like this shit is happening in other places.
Yeah.
So it was like we got exposed to like a different city, and we were like, oh no, like it's just us, like no one knows this shit, like what is this, what's going on? And then the next week we went to Vancouver, and we were like, oh wait, no, this is going to be huge, and we're like right smack dab in the middle of like something that's really dope.
Where else were you playing?
Colin definitely had us out in Baltimore. Studio B was like a huge moment for us.
Wait. I have evidence.
Yes. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
That was the first show that we played at Studio B. It might have been the first show we played in New York. That was like a real show, but like that was fucking so dope. It was like a battle, you know. It's like it's staged as a battle.
Cosmo and who was
Cosmo and Pace, I think.
Yeah.
There was a clip of that show that went like, like viral, for whatever viral meant, in like 2005 or 6, whenever that show was. You said 07?
Yeah, this was 07.
I remember that was like was like one of the earlier uploads on YouTube. Like that video was out there of like, I forget what we were playing, but it just looked chaotic and insane and fun. And I remember people telling me from like other cities, they're like, yo, I saw that clip of you guys, and like I had to come check you out after that. So, and then we went on to play there a couple more times. I think we played it once with Melissa, with Kid Sis, and then I remember we played it on the Fancy Footwork tour with Chromeo.
Nice.
Where I think we DJ'd in the booth and they were on the stage, because there was like a proper stage, right? It was bigger than all the other clubs that we were playing at the time. I feel like we were all playing these like really tiny shoeboxes. So it was the closest thing to like a legitimate venue I think that we had played either, that we were like, whoa, this is like a real ass club. And like it was packed. So it was hella, it was validating for sure.
And shout out to Dust the Rock for the incredible flyer artwork.
Oh yeah, I can tell now.
Yeah.
Yeah, RIP him. I also wanted to say rest in peace to Spinbad. He had a mixtape when you were talking about like Turntable Lab and mixtapes earlier. That was the first mixtape. Rock the Casbah was the first mixtape that I had heard that was like doing that kind of like mega mix, quick mix, like 60 songs in 60 minutes kind of like mix style that like literally gave me the foundation for how I wanted to rock a party, you know?
I was also going to ask about your transition from vinyl to Serato, which is what I assume you switched to.
Yeah, I think it was 2005 or 6. It was really, really quickly after I started with Flosstradamus. Like I had been DJing on my own for like a couple years, and I was doing all vinyl sets then. And then once Floss started, it was like the VHS or beta time with what was called Final Scratch and Final Scratch and Serato. And so Curt was on Final Scratch and I was on Serato, and Serato won that war. And so he switched over, and yeah, that was it from then on. But even then, when we first started on Serato, I would still have vinyl because some of the bootlegs, you couldn't find them anywhere. They weren't digitized. So like all those Hollertronics vinyls, you know, with like the Missy Elliott blend and like all that stuff I only had on vinyl. So there was like a little bit of a transitional period. But then very soon after, like once the holler board was up and running, and once like people were like music blogs became a thing, you could find digitized versions of almost all that stuff. And we became friends with, you know, Wes and with Mike. So we could be like, hey man, can you send me that file? And like you could actually get it so you could play it in Serato.
Also, this was Vegas for Magic in 2008.
Yeah.
Fader,
Like,
Carmelou.
Castles, this is a crazy lineup.
And like, look, it was 2008. So like the scene had really started to like get that corporate money a little bit. You know, you see the brands at the bottom. We didn't have that on the other flyers, you know. You'd see your logo, you know, but it wasn't like big money coming in yet. This was like the start of that.
So wait, I want to know more parties that you played around the country, because I don't know if I'm like, I know there was like Pop Life in Miami. Did you play at Grand Central?
Yeah, Grand Central with Jake Jefferson.
Yeah.
He was like bringing us down there. And then what was the Super Friends in SF? That was a huge part of it too. Like on that side of things, we met up with like Trackademics and Mike Baker and like those kids. And that was like a second home for us. Like Vancouver became a second home for us, where we would tour there and then also like take days off and just like kick it with those people, because it was just like they were like our, you know, like kindred, you know.
Did you do Sloppy Seconds in Atlanta?
Yes, with Caleb.
Yeah.
Yes, we did that. That was okay. So
I love that
shit
party.
was crazy. Yes, we played Drunken Unicorn. That was like the first one, because that place was called the MJQ.
Yeah.
And there was a tiny like little
JQ.
bar.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there was like a tiny like bar inside of that building that was called Drunken Unicorn. We were taking shit that was like so niche in Chicago and playing it in these different like scenes, because the internet democratized everything and made it so we could all get access to this music.
Yeah.
And then we were the first wave of people who were physically bringing it bringing it across state lines. Like we were trafficking music, like MP3s. We were like smuggling MP3s out of like.
I'm definitely quoting you on that, because like it's so true.
We were smuggling MP3s like over state lines into like different places, and then like playing them to people that didn't have any kind of like context for it, but fucked with it. They were just like so stoked on to hear whatever, and they're just like, this is crazy. But I wanted to say at Drunken Unicorn, one memory that I have there, all these memories are kind of blurry because, you know, we were partying too, but like they had a thing called the Vomitron 2000, and it was a Hinckley and Schmidt like water cooler bottle that was full of well tequila, and it was free. It was completely free. Like if you chose to, you could just like do a shot off the Vomitron, and like people still bought drinks and shit, but like that was how ratchet that night was. They had like a gallon of tequila, like 10 gallons of tequila for free. And we took we took a note from that. For our parties, the Get Out of the Hood parties, we had free Jello shots. So like we would do like Jello shots, like free Jello shots, and we just bring out like trays of them, and kids were like, ah! Like going crazy.
Banana Split had a keg on the dance floor, free keg on the dance floor, at least one or two, like at the beginning of the night. That would be gone.
Like, wait, what party are you going to that like there's free shit anymore? Like, you know what I'm saying? Unless it's like some really bougie event, but like this was like some hood shit.
I'm gonna look and see, because like I usually had an open bar at Sway. I was sponsored by Red Bull for like 2 years. Red Stripe for like 2 years.
Speaking of sponsors, I just have to shout out Scion. Remember how like involved Scion was in like our scene? I feel like I don't know who it was at Scion that was like really doing that, but like they were really fucking with our culture and like what we were doing. So there was like free Scion socks. They had these socks.
Oh my God, someone else mentioned this. Who did I just talk to that was like,
you have to mention the Scion socks. They're so comfortable.
Jaja from Ninja Sonic.
Okay,
He
okay,
said
good.
those
Yeah.
socks, like they were supposed to give them away, like on as like to the crowd, and then they just
Yeah.
ended up wearing them.
Yeah, they were the most comfortable socks I've ever worn in my life. To this day,
Wow.
I'm chasing that dragon. I'm like chasing that dragon. I'm like, where can I find these socks? I could buy like really expensive socks. I'm like, nah, where did they get these made? But the Scion socks, it was like a promotional item that they did that like DJs, like low key, we all knew it. So if you, any DJ, I guarantee any fucking DJ from this era, if you brought up Scion socks, they would be like, yep, their eyes would light up.
Did you guys do a mix with them?
We did.
Yeah.
We did a mix with Scion and Vice. So it was the Vice Records catalog mixed by Flosstradamus, and then it was like a Scion mix series.
You know, you also mentioned Matt and Kim, and
Mhm.
I also went to Pratt from 97 to 2001 with Matt and Kim and Japanther.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, so the
Smallest world.
first deal that I was like, I'm in the music industry. Vice had just started, and I met them, and then I booked Chromeo was the first band that I ever booked. That was the first
Oh my God, that's
and that's
crazy.
how I met Elaine. That was in 2003. When they were signed with Vice, I, already had Japanther like in my back pocket, and I was like, you guys have to like come see their show because these kids are nuts. And then they ended up putting out a split 7-inch single. It was the Panthers and Japanther. And I was like, I made it. I got a record deal for my friends,
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, you did. And like, I mean, when you were asking like the people that were pushing the needle, like, no cap, like that was you, Roxy. Like you were like that. You were like easily the person, if not like one of the top, 3 people that was doing this. So it's like, it's awesome that you're still doing it. You're still pushing the needle, but you're also bringing us back together to like have this retrospective, which is like really important. It was a really important time that kind of like is a little unsung. Like I was fortunate enough to like maintain a career through it. I think the DJs from that time were able to carry over a little bit easier than some of the artists were, because like the music industry sucks. So like, as you know, like rappers and singers and bands, they come and go. DJs, at the very least, we can play bar mitzvahs, so like we were able to like sustain ourselves. Flosstradamus was able to like tap into the EDM shit, so like that was just like a stroke of luck, but anyways, I wanted to say another thing is we haven't talked about South by Southwest. And South by was at that time really important because that was the first time that all of us came together. CMJ was like sort of like that, but not as much because it was so spread out, and where Austin is like this one little area. Remember, we would go to South by and like you would be walking down 6th Street and see all the people that you just knew from MySpace. You would like meet the people in your top 8, and be like, oh shit, like what's up? Come to my party later. I'm going to come to your party later. And I remember Todd P did a party that was Matt and Kim, Flosstradamus, and then like one other band. And it was out, it was on the east side before the east side was developed. If you go to Austin now,
Naeem and Ninja Sonic too, or no? Because there was
it might have been. It might have been.
I
Ninja
feel like
Sonic.
it was like there's train tracks around. It was like
yeah, it was off in the middle of fucking nowhere at a storage lot. And we had to climb a barbed wire fence to like we got a door because there was a door factory next door, and we put it on some trash cans and made like a DJ table because we didn't have a table. We drove down with our equipment, so we set up our turntables and shit. And that was where I met Tunde from TV on the Radio, and Nick Ketchstubbs was there, and that was when Nick was writing for the Fader. And so he did a write-up about us and ended up coming to Chicago and like photographing us and doing like a full-length feature on Flosstradamus, which was really dope. That was, again, huge exposure for us. Like we were in the Fader, so it was like a massive moment. But that connection was made at South by, and like there was like countless connections that were made down there. I feel like now it's not that so much. It's like, not to be an old head being like, man, back in the day it used to be better, but like it was just so grassroots and so like non-corporatized. Like you could literally get into every party and it was all your friends throwing parties. Whereas now it is literally everything is like Taco Bell presents, Nike presents, Supreme presents, like, and it's just like, it's just a shit show. But at that point in time, it was really a great way for all of us to put a face to the name for each other, that we were all these connections we were making just on the internet.
Yeah, definitely. Did you do peer pressure in Montreal?
Oh shit, we totally skipped over DL. Yeah. Yeah, shout out DL, Hatchmatic, A-Rock,
Yeah, A-Rock.
Shay. We played, I think, a festival up there first called Pop Montreal.
Oh yeah.
And they had like a tiny little like hole in the wall club that they put us and Kid Sis in, and we like fucked it up. And that was Canada was like up on it. Like Canada was, before the rest of the US was even like fucking with it, like Canada was with it. Canada was with the shits. So like it was kind of amazing to go up there and tour, but then we would play other places. And if the city didn't have one of these like built-in parties and someone who was like curating the scene for that, like if they didn't have a Roxy Cottontail of Memphis, then you would go and they'd put you in a nightclub and it would be whack. And you're like, oh, this isn't it. Yeah. But at this time, you know, you had DL, you had Caleb Gage, and you had, you know, My Gay Husband and Paul Devereaux. Like if your city had one of those like tastemakers and like cultural sort of like magnets who was bringing everyone together, then the party was always lit.
How do you think all of that has impacted now?
It's almost impossible to measure. It's completely and totally shaped where we're at right now. I feel genuinely that time in music shaped everything that we're experiencing now. Everything on the rap side of things, everything on the electronic side of things, like especially on the EDM side of things. And what's crazy, and why I said that this is like an unsung era, is that the kids that are in it now, they don't even know that it inspired them, because it's so many generations now from where it actually happened. You know, it was like us and then the people that we inspired, but now there've been like the people that they inspired and the people that they inspired. So like a 20-year-old kid now does not know who Spank Rock is, even though Spank Rock had such a huge part in why they do what they do and why they make what they make, you know? So like, that's why I said it's really important and awesome that you're doing this, because I cannot emphasize how much of a part it was. It's great that like Wes is still in existence, but he's not really, you know, like, it's not like he really represents that time anymore. That was such a specific time, and he got so like into like the superstar DJ EDM world that like the kids aren't really learning from him about this time.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't know, I feel like a fan of house music. No, even with house music, even with a lot of electronic music, like the history of it is forgotten. So it's important to trace back, you know, to the artists that started it. And as usual, Black artists and queer artists are the ones that laid the fucking foundation for all this shit. So, you know, tale as old as time.
Yeah, that's true. It's crazy. Like you said, like there probably would not be a Lil Nas X in this world if Naeem had not opened the doors.
Bro, I don't think there would be a Nicki Minaj or an Iggy Azalea if it wasn't for Kid Sister and for Amanda Blank. Like straight the fuck up. And what's crazy is that they're like wiped from the history books. And, you know, obviously we know who Nicki Minaj is. And unfortunately we know who Iggy Azalea is, you know, but it's just like, bruh, I don't think that there is something as comparable as this. Maybe with the history of house and techno with like those artists, those like Black artists, but even them, they do get some like credibility amongst the artist community, at least. Maybe not the fans knowing who they are, but like the artists and the DJs can say like, oh, I know who, you know, Frankie Knuckles is. I know who this person is. People really don't know or remember who Kid Sis and Amanda Blank and Spank Rock were like that. And it's kind of a shame. So that's what I'm saying. Like, again, this archive is really necessary just to educate people on it and hopefully put them up on that shit.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping by. That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and stalk. Bounce, little kitty.